Welcome students to lesson 17 of the natural hazards topic. In this lesson we bring together our understanding of tropical storms and we come to this conclusion, which is there are ways that we can manage them to protect countries and their people from the devastating effects of tropical storms. Let me show you how. Please write the date, title and learning objective and have a pen and paper ready to learn. Time to review prior learning. Write 1 to 10. Answer the questions from memory and then mark your answers. Game time. Number 1. The Purrock system. 2. George Washington. 3. Subduction or subduct. 4. Constructive. 5. Saffir-Simpson. 6. Protection. 7 is about $5 billion. 8. Coriolis effect, that's a difficult one. If you didn't understand that one, go back to the lesson on that and complete the question again. 9. Salinization. 10. $60 million. Give yourselves a mark out of 10. If you got 8 or more, you've really understood this. Fantastic. If you got below 8, then come back in a week's time and answer these questions again to see if you've improved. If you still haven't, then go back to the lessons relating to these questions and complete the tasks again. To introduce this idea of tropical storm management, I'm going to show you a video with some questions. Watch the video and then answer the questions and then we will discuss the ideas. So look at the damage that it's causing. Look at the storm surge initially, look at how high it is. Watching. This is only the warm up from the first wave. Now watch. That is the power of the storm surge. And look at the building. Look at the speed of the water coming over the roof. Look what it does to the roof. Astonishing power. So, answer the questions. So number 1, you should have said you saw a storm surge and you saw the damage that it caused to the town and the buildings in the video. 2, it completely removed one building from its foundations, it heavily damaged others, it dragged debris across with it. 3, what do you think people did to reduce future damage from events like this? Well, you could have said they might have built storm shelters on high ground, on stilts. You might have said that they built sea defences, such as sea walls, which might have prevented the storm surge from flooding the land. All these ideas we're going to understand today, so that you may understand in future how to protect a country from the hazards created by tropical storms. Let's go. This whole process starts with monitoring a tropical storm, knowing where it is and how powerful it is. Please write this subtitle and underline it with a ruler. So how do we monitor tropical storms? Well, it all starts with this. This is a satellite. And a satellite is a piece of technology that orbits, which means goes around the Earth, and it takes pictures or video of events on the Earth, in this case tropical storms, and sends those pictures back to people on Earth so that we can use that information and we can prepare. This tropical storm here, Typhoon Haiyan, is being monitored by this satellite. Now here's how it works. The American government has an organization called the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, NOAA, that controls more than 13 of these satellites, and they constantly monitor the Earth's atmosphere and its oceans to identify places where tropical storms will happen and to follow the tropical storms when they do form. These satellites look for 2 things in particular. Number 1, they look at ocean temperature. They see which places in the world are most likely to have tropical storms based on where has the hottest oceans. In particular, as you know, the Western Pacific Ocean near the Philippines has the warmest waters, but the Mid-Atlantic does as well, which is why there are hurricanes and typhoons in those places. NOAA also monitors the track of tropical storms, which is the direction, and makes predictions based on that track. And finally, once a tropical storm has formed, NOAA observes the wind speeds within the tropical storm, and the satellites can also monitor the size of the tropical storm. And doing this allows governments in countries that are likely to be affected by those storms to prepare appropriately. So the information provided by satellites to governments around the world is vital to help people prepare so that they survive them. Here, for example, is a satellite picture of Hurricane Katrina in 2005 passing over the Caribbean and about to hit the United States. It shows that it's an enormous storm with a fully formed eye in the middle and high-speed winds, a Category 5 storm. And because of this picture and an understanding using the satellites of the direction it was following, the track, the people living in the southern cities in the United States of America, such as in Florida here, were able to prepare because they get a picture like this. This is Typhoon Hagibis of 2019 passing over the Pacific Ocean towards Japan. Now this red area is a prediction. It's called the forecast path. And this picture was taken by satellite. The wind speeds and temperatures shown by the different colours measured by the satellites indicate how powerful the typhoon was, and based on its previous direction, its track, the satellite's able to predict, using computers on the land, where the tropical storm will go and its wind speeds. And because of this information, the Japanese government was able to prepare in the right way so that the people were kept safe. This information also allowed the Filipino government, for example, to understand that they were at low risk from this tropical storm, and so didn't have to do things like, for example, full evacuations. So tropical storms are monitored using satellites and other technologies, but principally satellites. They're monitored for their wind speed, their power, which is their intensity, and their track, their direction. And they're also monitored to find out whether they will form at all. And how is this information used specifically? How do we plan for tropical storms? Well, in America, they have something called Hurricane Preparedness Week. It happens every year. And it happens to educate the people in the states in America, in particular Florida and Texas and Louisiana, the states on the south coast of America, about how to prepare for a tropical storm. For example, what things we as individuals can do to protect our homes, or where we should go, or how to know if a tropical storm will affect us. This Preparedness Week is similar to hurricane drills, and it's similar to fire drills that we have in England. On top of Hurricane Preparedness Week, during tropical storm season in countries around the world, news broadcasts are constantly put on TV about hurricanes and other tropical storms, for example typhoons in the Pacific Ocean, and their direction and their power, so that people know about whether they're at risk. In America, for instance, this was formed for Hurricane Matthew, which happened a few years ago. These different colours in this southern state of Florida show the likelihood of Hurricane Matthew hitting that place, and also the intensity of the wind speeds when it does. So you have 4 different sections. First of all, you have hurricane versus tropical storm. Hurricane means it'll be more powerful wind and rain. Tropical storm, less powerful. And also you have warning and watch. Warning means higher risk. Watch means lower risk of being hit by the hurricane. This information helps people because if you're in the hurricane warning zone, the highest risk, most powerful storm area, the purple area here, then your response is going to be very different to someone living in the tropical storm watch zone, the yellow area, because the winds will be stronger, there'll be more likely to be a storm surge, and the tropical storm is more likely to hit you at all. And so people in, for example, West Palm Beach are going to be more likely to have to evacuate or board up their homes or buy emergency supplies than the people in the north of Florida here. So these alerts help inform people about the most suitable response. For instance, evacuating a low-risk area would be a bad idea because you'd lose money, for example, because you aren't going to work, or because your house has been destroyed but you haven't protected it. So an evacuation is not always suitable, especially if a place is at low risk. However, if you didn't evacuate, then you'd be at high risk of death or injury if you were in this purple area. So through informing people annually, and through informing people during hurricane season on TV, people are able to plan for tropical storms more effectively. And here's how. One of the key points indicated by Hurricane Preparedness Week is what supplies to buy before a tropical storm hits. For instance, this woman is stocking up on fuel for her car, because when tropical storms hit, petrol stations such as this one close down or are destroyed, and so transportation during and after a tropical storm becomes much more difficult if you're out of fuel. And so stocking up on fuel supplies allows people to, for example, escape a damaged area, evacuate, or recover more easily after the tropical storm has passed. For example, you can go rescue friends and family, or go to emergency shelters by car. This isn't the only supply. You might also buy medical supplies and food and water, because if you are forced to stay in your home and can't evacuate, or have chosen not to evacuate, then you may be several days or even weeks without supplies. Not only that, Hurricane Preparedness Week in America teaches people how to protect their homes, for example, boarding up windows so that the wind doesn't destroy the glass, which can pose a hazard. Aside from that, people might put sandbags in their doorways to prevent flooding. They might chop down any trees or remove any branches from the streets or their garden, which reduces the risk of flying debris hitting their homes or injuring them personally. Additionally, Hurricane Preparedness Week and other forms of planning teach people about the best evacuation routes before a tropical storm. People cannot simply all leave by one road out of a city in the day before a tropical storm hits, because there will be chaos and enormous traffic. So evacuation routes help people understand exactly how to escape their city or their village and where specifically to go to be able to be safe. Very important, though, also is community action, people working together as a town, village, neighborhood. In almost every community in the world, there are vulnerable people who are more likely to be hurt by tropical storms. Elderly people, disabled people, poorer people. And those people individually are less able to defend themselves and to evacuate, for example, in the event of a tropical storm. And so community action, where people work together to, for example, as you see here, prepare sandbags, enables those people who are vulnerable to become more resilient, which means to be able to survive tropical storms more effectively. So community action is vital for that reason. Finally, there is a way to protect people against tropical storms. We can actually design our buildings in such a way that when a tropical storm hits, they are less likely to be damaged. One such example has been used in the newly emerging economy of Bangladesh here in South Asia. Bangladesh is a country that regularly is hit by cyclones. Cyclones, if you recall, are tropical storms that affect the Indian Ocean. And Bangladesh is a very low-lying country, meaning it's not very high above sea level, so flooding from, for example, storm surges is very likely. So, in response, Bangladesh has built many of these. These are storm shelters, in particular, cyclone shelters in Bangladesh. They are enormous concrete buildings raised on stilts and built on higher ground. They have several stories to be able to hold more than 1,000 people in total. Reinforced roof, filled with many different types of supplies and water connection and sewage. These storm shelters enable up to 1,000 people to survive for several weeks after a tropical storm hits. And they provide a safe point for people to go to when they evacuate before a tropical storm. And this building and buildings like it are credited with saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in the last 10 years in Bangladesh. And it's an example of tropical storm protection, because it is a physical action that people do to strengthen themselves against tropical storms. I would strongly encourage you to watch these two videos about tropical storm protection in two different countries, an NEE and an HIC. I link below. Time to assess learning. I'm going to ask you some questions. Answer them using your memory, and then we will discuss the answers. So, why do you think satellites are more effective at helping countries prepare for tropical storms in HICs than in LICs? You should have said that satellites are an expensive technology. It is mostly HICs with access to that technology, and consequently, there's an unequal supply of effective monitoring between HICs and LICs, meaning that HICs are more able to prepare in advance than LICs when tropical storms hit. Question 2. What is meant by tropical storm monitoring? This means watching tropical storms and the ocean to identify where they are, how powerful they are, and where they are going. And this allows people to identify the areas most at risk and take appropriate measures to respond. Question 3. What's meant by community action? Community action means people working together rather than individually. Doing so helps protect the most vulnerable people in society, such as elderly people, poorer people, or disabled people, who are less able to prepare and protect themselves against tropical storms and other hazards. Time to embed learning. I'm going to show you some questions. Answer them using your understanding from this lesson, and then mark your answers. Make sure that you mark in green pen and add any corrections or missing parts. Number 1. These are the key points that you need. You need all of them. 2. Make sure you have both points. 3. Again, make sure you have both points. You need the word vulnerable or vulnerability here. And then you also need to say how it helps. 4. Any two of these points are needed. Give yourselves a mark out of the total. Make sure you've added corrections in green pen. If you lost 2 marks or fewer, you really understood this. That's fantastic. If not, go back and watch the explanation again, and then attempt these questions in a week's time. I've given you another video here just to help you understand, again, how people prepare in America for tropical storms. So just watch silently and write notes, maybe 5 bullet points at the end of the video summarizing what you've seen.